Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of The Guys Who Stare at Stats. Cade Kennedy with you alongside Tyler. Tyler, we have made it to the semifinals. We are so close, only 3 games left in the college football season. It's just crazy to think about that, we started this year, so much optimism for a lot of people, and now we're down to 2 teams that I don't think a lot of people, if you would have said in September, I don't think anyone would have believed Notre Dame Penn State would be a semifinal. Texas and Ohio State, you could have believed, but it's been a fun journey.
Oh, yeah. Excellent as always. In typical fashion, it goes by quick in a hurry and way too fast. And then before you know it, like I said, you're down to the final handful, and it's the last go around until August and September again.
Absolutely. And as always, before we get into things, feel free to like the video, subscribe to the channel, all those fun things. Leave a comment down below. That always means a lot. It's one of those, we do take time to read those when we do get comments. If it's something, we agree with, disagree with, we'll bring it up on the show. We want to continue that conversation to keep things going. But getting into the first game, Notre Dame and Penn State, the Orange Bowl. This is, I think, the more intriguing matchup of the two, Tyler, purely because if you look at, the offensive and defensive efficiencies I always like to talk about. Notre Dame, the most efficient defense in the country. Offense is number 14 in that category. Penn State is number 8 on offense, but number 6 on defense. So both teams a little bit better defensively in terms of just pure efficiency. And then Notre Dame, great passing defense, only giving up 167 yards through the air. We know what Notre Dame can do. They're going to want to run the ball. 217 on the ground, that's what they usually put up. Passing game, a little bit worse than that, 189. But Penn State, how many times have I said it? What they do so well is just in terms of running the ball. Whether it be stopping it or doing it themselves, they are great as a rushing offense, running for 202. As a rushing defense, Tyler, they only give up 101 yards per game. These are two teams that I think their styles, when the more and more I thought about it, they're pretty similar teams in terms of how they want to play.
Yeah, there's in this game, Cade, it's not going to be a question of who can make the other team play their pace. They're both wanting to do a lot of the similar things. They're going to both play at that same pace. So, really, this game, when it boils down to it, on both sides, is who can execute that style of football better. This will probably shape up like a classic Big Ten matchup. It wouldn't surprise me if this is more of a low scoring game where it comes down to, okay, which quarterback can emerge and make bigger plays down the stretch and who can take care of the ball. Like, that's what it comes down to. We got to monitor as well the usage of Jeremiah Love for Notre Dame. He's a little banged up after their quarterfinal game. Sounds like, according to Marcus Freeman, that he's going to be as close to 100% as you could get at this time of the year, which is, maybe 85, 90, who knows. But we'll have to kind of monitor him because if he's a little, not as explosive, maybe that will play big into this one, I think, for Notre Dame. So can Jeremiah Love be effective in the touches that he gets? And, for Penn State, can you play the cleaner ball game? I mean, that's what it comes down to. A lot of those basic cliche things we hear, don't turn it over, get those, tough yards. That's what this game's going to boil down to.
Absolutely. You mentioned the depth and the injuries already, so I won't go right back into that. Notre Dame, a 1.5 point favorite in this, that has stayed constant. One of the few that is kind of surprising to me. That has not changed at all from the time that the spread opened on this thing. But this feels like one of those true coin flip games that, with how similar these teams are, you think about, X factors. That's always what you want to go to in terms of a game like that. And I don't think on the offensive end, if we're talking about, airing it out, Drew Aller, Riley Leonard, different styles of quarterback. Aller's more willing to air it out. Leonard, more of your dual threat type of guy. I mean, you can't get more dual threat than only throwing for 90 yards and still finding a way to beat Georgia with your legs. I mean, there's no more dual threat ability than that. But it all comes down to 2 things, I feel like. What is your X factor on offense, and which running back duo do you like more? If you're Notre Dame, do you like Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price? Or if you're Penn State, do you roll with Nick Singleton and Katron Allen? Those are the real main factors to me. Now, where things differ is where do you think this game's going to come down to? If Penn State's going to win it, I think they have to break through Notre Dame's secondary. And I cannot think of a better guy to try to do that than someone like a Tyler Warren, the best tight end in college football. He's going to have a big day if Penn State wins this thing.
Yeah, I think so. There's no question about that. And when you talk about those type of things, it could be just a few plays, right? It doesn't have to be all a game. Because, like I said, I think this is going to ultimately, Cade, I mean, disagree with me here if you think different. But this could wind up being a 17-14 type final. I mean,
This is
just
one of
kind
those
of.
that, yeah, I agree. You could tell me first to 14 wins, and I'd probably believe it in this game.
Now, what would be really fun is if all of a sudden we get some offensive explosion in this one. You get a surprise quarterback duel between Drew Allard and Riley Leonard. That would be a lot of fun. The total's 44.5. So, you're looking low 20s is what Vegas is thinking. So that's kind of in line. But man, Cade, I've been chewing on this one. Who do I go with? Because both these teams, outside of Ohio State, I think these are truly your best next teams in terms of how they've been playing to close the season and in the playoffs. But I feel like there's just something about this Notre Dame team.
Yeah.
What a story it would be. We talked about the quarterfinals for them. Have that disappointment against Northern Illinois, come all the way back, dominate down the stretch, and get all the way into the championship game would be a heck of a story. I think at the end of the day, Riley Leonard makes the plays, power Notre Dame over the top.
There you go. And see, and this goes back to what I said when we talked about that Notre Dame Georgia game. What Notre Dame team, in your lifetime have you felt like can actually win this thing? We're not talking about the Notre Dame team in 2012 where you knew once they got to Alabama, things were probably going to go downhill. This Notre Dame team has that feeling. They have that physicality. They have that style to them where you feel that they can do this. They believe they can do it. Everyone for once believes Notre Dame can pull this off. It also comes down to the coaching battle. This is going to be a narrative you're going to hear, time and time again about James Franklin. He can't win the big game. I consider that Boise State win a pretty big win. It's a quarterfinal game. You could say that's Boise State. They had the best running back in the country. That's a big win for Penn State. I think, though, the only problem is I like Coach Freeman a bit more. I think he's a little bit more aggressive. We saw that against Georgia. I think Notre Dame's special teams come up big again. They have the best special teams unit. Talk about efficiency. They have the best special teams efficiency of the 4 teams remaining. I think it's the little things, like you said, Tyler, that just put Notre Dame over the top in this one. Obviously, I like them to cover. I don't think this is going to be a 1-point game, but I'd say Notre Dame by somewhere between 3 and 6. It feels like it's going to be one of those comes down to a field goal type of deals.
See, we're right in line because I'm thinking in my mind, when you look at this game, like I said, over-under is about 44.5. I could see this being a 23-20 win by Notre Dame, kind of a chip shot field goal to cement it late, whether it be at the buzzer with a few seconds left. And I could just see Riley Leonard having some of those highlight plays. A guy that has been solid all season, but hasn't necessarily been in the forefront for this team most of the time with how great they've been in terms of Jeremiah Love and that defense and, everybody around him. I think it comes down to him with some special plays, whether that be with his feet or his arm. I mean, obviously, he can run the ball. He's done that throughout this year and had some of those moments. But that's where I get the gut feeling on this when I'm breaking it.
Absolutely. It should be a good one nonetheless. But the other game to get to, Tyler, the Cotton Bowl, Ohio State and Texas. Going to be a cold one in Arlington. That, of course, does not matter because this game is played in a dome. It also, weather, I've been saying this. I'm a fan of let's put this thing back in the real Cotton Bowl. Make these two go over to Fair Park and play this thing out.
Yeah.
But, Ohio
Battle
State.
The elements.
Exactly. Ohio State 5.5-point favorites in this one. There'd been some talk about, would weather push this thing back or do. Cotton Bowl statement said the game is on as planned for Friday night. And this is a game that, Tyler, we talked about it a little bit right after the quarterfinals had happened. And we both had the feeling that Ohio State had a decent chance to beat Texas up in this one. But as the week has gone on, that the line that you see there, 5.5 for Ohio State right now, kind of the one number you don't want to get if you're a bettor, obviously, or a gambler, however you want to call it with sports betting. That's the one number you don't want to see, that 5.5 in there. But Ohio State, at one point, it was 6.5. Now it's starting to come back down. Some people are starting to try to run with that. No one's respecting Texas. A lot of people, they see what they like with Ohio State. Ohio State, number 3 in defensive efficiency, number 2 offensive efficiency. Texas, number 2 on defense, but their offense is all the way down at 11. This Ohio State team, I think it's easy to say, this is no offense to the other 3 teams, they're the hottest team in football right now. You blow out Tennessee, you blow out Oregon, they look the part of the Ohio State team we expected to see all season.
They do. And, it's really tough to bet against them going into this. But as the week goes on, I see why the line starts to shift because people step back and say, yes, Ohio State's been a great team in the playoffs. They've just absolutely done a 180 compared to what we saw at the end of the regular season. No question about it. It's explosive as you've wanted it. Jeremiah Smith, the true freshman, has put his name up there with Ryan Williams as, hey, this guy might already be one of the best players in the country as a true freshman. Will Howard's just evolved into an absolute beast. I mean, he's had some good moments throughout the season, but he's also had some of those down moments. That hasn't happened in the playoffs, right? He has just been absolutely insane when you look at it. I mean, for your college football playoff games, Cade, you look at the ESPN's QBR. This man, Will Howard, 98.7 against Tennessee, 97.7 against Oregon. I mean, you can't ask for better.
You can't.
And this is a guy that, throughout the season had some good performances, but for the most part, it was kind of the 70s. The Oregon game he did flash the first time against Indiana and Northwestern. But man, I mean, just completely different player. That being said, this Texas team, they are chaotic. They're mystifying sometimes in how their offense comes and then disappears for a bit. But one thing that they're rock solid about, that they do not play about, that I think people are starting to realize is that defense, Cade. I mean, that defense is scary. You could argue this might be the best defense that Ohio State has seen all season. I think there's a very good case for that.
I mean,
no disrespect to Penn State, to Oregon, to Michigan, but this might be that defense.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good point. Texas, it's the 3rd best passing defense if you go by yards. That's a little bit skewed because of what Texas has had to deal with the past few weeks. They're now 1 yard behind Iowa State, so technically they're 3rd, but really they've been 2nd. They've been in that battle the entire season. Horns only give up 112 on the ground. You make a really good point about that. Michigan's been obviously a tough defense. They got stoned down in that game. Penn State, they've been struck down by them, another solid defense we've talked about. But something about this Ohio State team, with the weapons they have, you talk about the emergence of Jeremiah Smith, guys like that. Emeka Ibuka has been having a fun season as well, of course. This is an Ohio State team that, with what Texas has had to deal with, you look at their last 2 games, Cam Scatterbo was able to get going in the second half. Clemson was able to find some life in the second half. Texas can come out and play their best half of the season, but you've got to play really good in that 3rd and 4th quarter. And I just don't know if Texas, as weird as this is to say, with how good Texas has been all season, I don't know if they can play the full 60 minutes against Ohio State.
Well, and that's the thing, right? They have to. Their offense, this is the game that their offense has to come out and say, hey, we know we've been carried by our defense the entire season. Because they have. I mean, that's not a truth the Texas fan wants to hear, but it is, right? Quinn Ewers, very much like Carson Beck when we talk about him, it has some really good moments, but man, when the wheels fall off, it looks ugly. And then behind that, you got Arch Manning, who people start clamoring for. That's tough on a quarterback psyche. But this offense for Texas, if they want a shot, like I said, in the second half, they could keep it close in that first half, but they've got to come out in the second half, and the offense has got to say, hey, we're here for full 60 minutes. And that's where I want to talk myself into it. I don't know why. But I feel like this is just one of those special Texas teams, right? It's all coming together finally. Fought through adversity at the beginning of the year with injuries. The running back room hadn't mattered. But man, Ohio State, I mean, how do you deny what they've been doing?
Absolutely.
And I think the line reflects that with that 5.5. Talk me into something, Cade. What you got?
Well, see, the reason I've got here for why I think Ohio State is still going to win this game, you talk about that Texas offense. I mean, let's just look at it. Matthew Golden, Isaiah Bond, Ryan Wingo, DeAndre Moore Jr., Gunnar Helm, great receivers and tight ends that Texas has. Like I said against Arizona State, and I'm going to keep saying this even if Texas finds a way to win this game, which they have a decent shot at, it's all going to come down to what Quinn Ewers does. Because Ohio State, we talked about how great Texas's defense is statistically. Ohio State only gives up 92 rushing yards per game. So if you're a Contravion, if you're Wisner, if you're Blue at running backs, great duo Texas has, you're going to be up for the challenge. Because if Ohio State makes this game one-dimensional, Ohio State, it's not a weakness in their secondary. They only give up 152 passing yards per game. That's the best passing defense by yardage in the entire country. The Texas is running into as equally a good defense. And if you're telling me, I can't believe this is a sentence I have to say now, this is very weird going from two Big 12 guys to Big 10 versus SEC now. If you're giving me this iteration of Will Howard we've seen the past two games, or Quinn Ewers we've seen in the last two games, I'm taking Will Howard. I think Ohio State has the better team right now in terms of what they're doing offensively. I think they have an equally good or better defense compared to what they've been able to do the past few games. Texas, I think they'll put up a fight. It's essentially a home game for them in Arlington. They'll be able to ride the wave of momentum, I think, early. But Ohio State just keeps finding a way to punch back. And late in the game, it doesn't turn into a blowout by any means, but I think Ohio State could get a double-digit win.
Oh, double digit. I don't think I agree with that. Here's where I'm going with this. I think you look at Quinn Ewers, you bring him up. I agree. It rides on his shoulders, right? What does he do? Quinn Ewers played well enough in that Arizona State game that they should not went to overtime. Texas blew 2 field goals, uncommon for Bert Arlen. Quinn Ewers was 20 of 30 for 322 and 3 touchdowns. Yes, he had the pick. Understand that. Also had a rushing touchdown. It looked to me like Quinn Ewers maybe found some confidence in that game against Arizona State. Maybe started believing that, hey, we can be the reason this team wins, not just because of the defense. I think you're going to see Texas maybe play their best game offensively of the season. They're going to break down the tape and say everybody's counting us out. Really, if not the best game of the season, probably since that Florida game. Mind you, Florida, Ewers 19-27, 333, 5 touchdowns. Yes, that was a depleted Florida team, but still by far and away his best overall game this season. I think you're going to see that Quinn Ewers. I really do. A guy that's really confident in what he's doing. And you remember, he had them up big. I mean, this was a guy that was trying to put away Arizona State. So I feel Ohio State might just be on too much of a heater right now. But it would not surprise me if this game comes down to a who has the ball last situation, whether that be touchdown, field goal. I'm not going to say double digits, but I do think Texas is going to give them everything they got, but I can see Ohio State just have enough in the end to pull this out.
There you go. Either way, we still agree, just a little bit differentiating on the
I
point
wanted to go
total
with Texas, but I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it,
there.
Cade.
Can't
I
do
could
it.
not do it.
Cannot do
Can't
it.
do it.
I don't blame you.
Because it just yours is too much of a question mark. It's again the Carson Beck situation with Georgia, where he could be 300 yards, 4 touchdowns through 3 quarters, and then for all we know, just fall off the cliff in the fourth. So
yeah, which is crazy. Which is crazy because this is the same conversation we had about Will Howard before the Tennessee game.
Yes, and he's completely flipped that narrative. I talk about the QBR. That man is just something has clicked. It took this long, but my goodness, something has clicked.
Absolutely. It'll be fun either way, though, obviously, the 2 playoff semifinals. It's going to be fun regardless. I'm sorry. Even if, not saying this will happen, not saying I think this will happen, even if we got our classic semifinal blowout somehow in this situation, like I said, don't think it'll happen. Don't think it should happen. Either way, it's still going to be a fun time with football. And as always, I'm sure everyone will react accordingly, no matter what the results are in these games. No one will overreact. Social media famously never overreacts to anything, obviously. But
no. But what excites me the most, Cade, about these matchups is that regardless of who wins each, we're going to have a truly special national title game. I feel like all 4 of these teams are good enough to win a title, and it should make for some real fireworks over these last 3 games of the season.
Absolutely. But with all that being said, as always, if you enjoyed this video, if you've made it all the way so far, feel free to hit the like button. Subscribe to the channel as well. Hit that notification bell to always be notified when new videos come out. Feel free to leave a comment down below. As always, what do you agree with? What do you disagree with? All that fun stuff. You might just be featured on the next video. You never know. But as always, we'll have some more college basketball stuff coming up. We'll see if we can squeeze an NFL video in there. I am a bit more busy than I expected to be, honestly, or else that would be out pretty quick. But we'll get there. NBA content will be on the way eventually as well. We've still got a lot of sports to go. It does not stop at college football. We'll have some other stuff to get to as well. And maybe even an OU reaction video when they finally figure out who their defensive coordinator is. Whenever that is. That could be forever from now. I don't know. But, folks, as always, thank you for watching. Thanks for sitting through any of the technical problems. I know the audio kind of sounded maybe sounded funky for some people in this one. That might be put that in the comments down below. But folks, as always, until next time, have a good one, everybody.